Hi everyone, I'm Jackie Wilson. I'm one of the co-founders of Positively Empowered Kids, doing one of our interviews again to empower and inspire both parents and children during this lovely lockdown time that we're experiencing. Today, we've got an incredible lady. I'm so excited to interview the lovely Amanda Peddle about her amazing, and she doesn't know I've got it, but she does know I've got it, Tams journey. Which is an incredible book, and one of my absolute passions is neuroscience and children particularly learning about their brain and how it works. So tell us a little bit more, Amanda, about you and the amazing Tams journey.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's really lovely, and it's just nice to do something different and see some different faces, and hopefully this will cheer a few people up, even if it's just a little bit of a distraction for a little while. But I'm the same as you. Early neuroscience for children, I think, is a huge passion, and quite by accident, it's something that's I've developed over 20 years, and children have become more and more understanding and open to having conversations that are more science-based, as opposed to abstract conversations about feelings and using words for feelings that aren't scientific based. You know, we've got an awful lot of children, huge diversity, spectrums of children, and a lot of them just like to understand the facts rather than overcomplicate what are one of our most basic human responses. So for me, the neuroscience part goes all the way back to Charles Darwin, about 140 years ago, was doing work around how the body parts and the brain parts were associated in informing the body of feelings and reactions, and over time we've just given them so many names and made it very, very complicated, when actually if we come back to basic science, then it is quite a simple explanation for children at a fairly young age to give them a basic grounding, and what the Tams Journey books do is just introduce that basic understanding. Obviously there's going to be children with, you know, intense trauma issues that are going to need more intensive work, but I really believe that as a race, as a human race, we need to be having really, really simple conversations about how the body works, how we interpret our world, and what that causes in our body, to be able to understand ourselves and how we work in the world, without creating massively excessive extra levels of stress, but trying to fix things that don't need fixing, and being okay with a wide range of emotions, rather than, you know, give them a negative status and turn them into something that we really need to be afraid of, when they are very natural, and while they might not feel very nice sometimes, and certainly at the moment our body response is off the scale, and it's okay to have a wide range of emotions. It's okay not to be positive through the whole of it, because we're not designed to be that. You know, we're designed to have a range, a roller coaster of emotions, and so look, I'm waffling already, aren't I?
I think for me, everything you've said, I am so like, yes. It's so, this is what we need to do. You know, I do work with young people, and when I teach them neuroscience, they are so, they love it, they grasp onto it, and they're like, oh my goodness, I can make a difference. And it's the fact that we haven't been taught in a way to, like you said, to understand ourselves, so that we know what to do and what we're capable of doing. And that for me is something that I think, and I'm sure you agree, needs to be in the curriculum. It needs to be taught, because it's so empowering to have this information. You know, this first book, which I haven't seen the second book yet, but this talks about the lovely amygdala, which I'm sure you can tell us more about. But so many people are experiencing that kicking off, you know, and it is, and we do have a real situation going on we can navigate through it if we know how. And for a lot of people, we haven't been taught how to kind of look at it logically, think about what we can do, be rational.
Yeah.
We're going into a different state, aren't we?
Yeah, 100%. And like you say, so the idea of the first 3 books, so the second book is actually ready to go, and it's just with the printers waiting for me to press the button. So I'm just giving us a little bit more time to settle so I can get to the postal service, and that will be out. So the first book, like you say, it looks very much at informing children and their parents and their grandparents.
Yeah.
You know, it informs them of the process from sensory perception through to how the amygdala, which is a tiny, tiny part of the brain here, processes that information, and we have the fight, flight and freeze response. And most of our emotional responses can fit into that category, and it's what our body's designed to do for millions and millions of years. The second book looks at then how that information is passed through to the tummy, the heart and the lungs, and then what that physical feels like. So there's so many bits of information. I've got some nice plushies from the Giant Microbe company. So we've got an adrenaline.
Oh.
And we've got a neuron. So the kids I work with have christened them Ron and Ren. They came up with that themselves. They all know that adrenaline is one of the chemicals that's released. They all know that the neurons send the messages in the brain, and that creates a feel. And it might be something as simple as a tummy ache. And we have lots of school refusers, lots of children who struggle to go to school because they feel sick.
Yes.
And over time, if they continue to feel sick, then they will actually be sick. So even just breaking down for them what the body's doing can enable them not even to require a strategy, just to have the understanding that if I walk out the door, even though I feel sick, that's going to be okay. It's okay to be nervous about going to school. And then you can start breaking down, you know, some of the areas. The third book will look at, or you know, it's written, it's just not illustrated yet. It will look at the neural responsibility of patterns and how we can use our senses positively to change the pattern.
Yeah.
So, you know, the first 3 books actually, they actually reflect a program that I've been delivering for years. So the TAM Project is a 4-week program that goes alongside the books. So that's where they came from. Obviously I run the books past the kids as we're going along, so they can tell me which bits that are really effective and which bits they really don't like. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think, do you know what, that's something I'm very much a cheerleader on, is involving kids in what we're doing. You know, there's a lot of us out there doing great work, and the more we can actually co-produce stuff with kids, they are so wise. They've got so much insight and knowledge. It's like they already know this stuff, but we're just kind of, because they're connected, they're not as affected by life as we are as adults, and it's so much easier. But it's not impossible, because as you will probably tell everybody, our brains are neuroplastic, and we can make changes at any point in our life, which is why it's so effective for parents to read this too. You know, it's just really, and I think the beauty of your book is it's simple to understand. It's not high level science.
No,
you're providing it for a young child or an adult to understand, and that just means everybody can access it, even a teenager. You know, they're going through all this, and with teenagers, their amygdalas are a little bit more active.
And I mean, I used, one of my sort of half sessions in the week is with an alternative provision students within a mainstream setting, and they had a really big part to play in this, because we did a lot of work around how would this information have, they all said, I wish I'd read that when I was at primary school.
Yeah.
So we were like, well, how can we make this really special for these sort of youngsters. So they had a lot to do with it at one of my local schools. They had quite a lot to do with sort of informing that, and they still ask, and actually a lot of their names are in the front of the first one, you know, some of the sort of names, so they've got their names in there so that they
Brilliant.
know that they played their part. But it's, I mean, one particular child really, you know, he's a teenager now, but he'd been very reticent about working with people, and wasn't going to do this, wasn't going to do that, didn't want counselling, didn't want this, that and the other. And I said, well, that's okay, because I'm none of those things. I'm a support worker. I've just come here to, you know, give you some support if you want it. He didn't want it. So, okay. There was another younger student who he'd sort of taken under his wing. So I sort of set them the task of reading the book and doing me some feedback. And that prompted a conversation. And he said, I never knew you could talk about your feelings without getting the ump. And that's really stuck. And I've used it in some research paper, and I've used it in some things I've written. Because for me, that did encompass there was a lot of focus on intensive work around emotional context. And in a lot of cases, that's okay, it's quite appropriate. There's an awful lot of children there that aren't going to engage with that, but it's too scary for them. And sometimes, so this work is as good as an introduction to get them to learn to engage.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, if you're having a conversation around the science about the basics, I'm not claiming to be a world famous neuroscientist, I'm not.
Yeah.
You know, my qualifications are in that blend of providing the science with the therapeutic and the education, so that it becomes an educational tool, a learning experience. You know, and giving the kids a learning experience, and a storybook with a character. I mean, they like a storybook,
of course.
You know, the picture's a little bit sort of anime type. You know, it's gone down well with the children. I'm really proud of it.
Brilliant. That's
so
great.
Far.
Yeah. So in terms of the situation that we're in right now, we're experiencing, particularly parents having to homeschool their children.
Yeah.
A lot of them are working mums and dads who are trying to balance work and home life with the homeschool situation. What advice would you give them to support their kids, even themselves, at this particular time, just to kind of give us a little bit more that we can be doing and thinking about?
I just think I think there's too much pressure on prescriptive ways of processing this. For lots of children, routine is really important, but I think there's an awful lot of pressure on having a school day or doing things in a particular way. We are in an unprecedented situation where, not since the Second World War, or for most people, has our polyvagal response system been under this much pressure. And that is a term by Stephen Porges about this whole process. You know, the fight, flight and freeze process is used for emergencies, and we overuse it. Of course, at the moment, it's a very real threat, actually, as opposed to the everyday safe threats that we're constantly responding to and creating feelings that are unpleasant. And I just think people need to be kind to themselves and kind to each other. And I know we had the be kind thing in the press, but even so far as there's a thing on the news comparing the fantastic gentleman who'd raised millions for the NHS and a celebrity who was crying on his doorstep, and people were very critical of the celebrity crying on the doorstep and for the older gentleman to have raised this much money. And you know, this is really unkind. You know, people draw these really unkind contexts. So he must be a hero and he must be a wimp. You know, why could it not be that his fight response is strong and his flight response is strong? So he is going to tuck away and have a lot more emotional feelings, and he is going to find the grit and the resilience and the heroic behaviour that we see as heroic. He just might be very high up on the fight side of things, and he might be very low on that and high on the flight side of things, and I just think we're all being very judgy. That there's an awful lot of pressure to be something, to be good, to be a key worker, to be important, and I think the sad part about that is that mums at home that are struggling are constantly feeling under pressure. I spoke to a friend of mine who said, I've done nothing with my life. Why aren't I a nurse? Why aren't I out there helping everybody else? I said, but you're staying at home. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And I think rather than fight the range of emotions, I think there needs to be more conversation about it, and go with it. Just go with it. You know, have those conversations more. Stop trying to fit into this perfect mold that we think we should be doing, because that's just your brain playing tricks on you. You know, like in my head I should be writing a thesis and 10 books, that in reality I can just about get dressed, I've got my slippers on, and I do what I manage to do in a day, and that's all right. If I feel miserable, that's all right.
It's just accepting.
If I have a positive moment, it's all right. I think it's about being accepting of your feelings and your emotions, rather than letting them upset you further.
Absolutely. That's wonderful advice. Thank you very much. Because I think a lot of people are, you know, when they're seeing people out there doing this and that, we're all experiencing to some degree a fight or flight response. We are in that, and so we're coming from that perception, and that's our reality at the minute. We're not coming from a very logical, rational place.
No, not at all. And I think to try and logicalise and rationalise a situation, you can't do it. Your brain's not in that place.
There's no certainty. There's no certainty
not
at the moment.
It's very unsettling. And, you know, and even for people, I think if people like yourself and I mean, we study this, we teach it to other people. And if we've still got to be putting things in place for keep our self-care going and checking on other people, then that's 10 times more difficult for lots of other people. I just think there's a lot of pressure out there too. You know, people need normalcy, and that routine is going to trick your brain into thinking that things are more settled. So for some people that's going to work really well. For other people, a prescriptive routine will just make you crosser.
Absolutely.
You know, so I think you've just got to find what works for you as a family with your children, and then be a bit kind to yourself, and, you know, stay off social media with people telling you what you should and shouldn't be doing.
That's great, Amanda. I'm going to finish the chat now, because you've got some great insight, and I think a lot of people will get a lot out of this, because your book, and where can they get your book if they'd like to order it?
So Tam's Journey, the beginning, the first book, is on Amazon. It's on Waterstones online, and I've got a Shopify shop, Tam's Journey Shopify. So you can order them on there, and within the next 2 weeks. Actually, on the Shopify site, you can order the book with the sloth.
Oh, fabulous! So just on Shopify
at the moment, just on Shopify, you can order the book with the sloth, and you can pre-order the second book with the sloth as a gift set.
Brilliant. So I'm gonna have a look at that one. Definitely. And do you have a website?
I do. It's not a Tam's Journey website. It's Inside Out OSYP .co.uk, and it's got a Tam's Journey page on it. And actually, there's a load of colouring sheets from pages from the book and the second book, and then there's a little exercise as well about finding your inner amazingness. So for those of you that don't know, TAM actually stands for the amazing me. So it's about individual journeys and individual explorations and a celebration of our uniqueness.
Absolutely. And you are amazing, Amanda.
You are amazing.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so thank you for your time. It's been lovely, a wonderful interview. I was excited. I'm still excited. I want to carry on talking to you all day. But thank you for coming on Positively Empowered Kids and telling people more about what you do.
Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome.